Hey, we're Saluda. Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a special guest with me today, Nate Akin. What's up, man?
What's up?
How's it going?
It's good.
I have some special things to read about you. Some of the stuff, we're friends, and I didn't even know some of these things. And I thought you were doing like an early April Fool's joke. But you are the Associate Director of the Pillar Network, which we're right here in the headquarters of today. And you serve in a pastoral role at Open Door Church, where we both serve together.
That's right.
In addition to that, you serve as the Director of Baptist 21 and podcast. I didn't even know this. You're the host for Christ-Centered and Clear.
That's right.
I listened to my first episode last night.
Okay.
I didn't even know
We've
that.
taken about a 3-month break, so
okay.
we need to pick it back up.
There you go. Yeah. You also have a Master's of Divinity at Southeastern, and you went to, this is the part I didn't know, you have your bachelor's degree in political science from Murray State, which I think I knew, University, where you twice played in the NCAA tournament.
Twice played, and they're actually getting ready to play Thursday night.
Are they really?
The first round. Murray playing, I think, San Francisco, which is an interesting game, but yeah, that was a long time ago and a lot of pounds ago.
And a lot of pounds ago, both of us. Yeah, I played basketball too, a lot of pounds ago. But I didn't play in college. I was not that good. I actually played like third string bench JV. That's how good I was. So you're into sports.
Oh yeah.
You're into theology.
Oh yeah.
Those are the two things I know about you.
That's about it. Like I can't fix anything. I can't sing. I can't paint anything.
Right.
I can talk theology and sports.
So we're not here to talk about pedals or
the
gear
office.
today.
I can talk about sitcoms too.
That's
Other
right.
than that,
We
I got
do
three
both.
things I'm good at, and that's about it.
We both enjoyed The Office. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time today. I want to get right to the point. You're part of the Pillar Network, which is our church planning. We don't have to go into all that today. I've talked about it on the channel before, church planning network. But in that, you travel a lot more than I do. You see a lot more churches, a lot more ministries than I do.
Yeah.
I would say, what is the state in the church, the state of music worship ministry that you see right now?
So I would give two answers to that question because I think in some sense there's been a I don't want to call it reformation. I don't know the history of kind of musical worship in the church that well enough to say this, but there is a lot of encouraging signs of guys who would be the primary person leading musical worship who also have pastoral gifts and they're pastors. They don't just lead musically. They're shepherding the flock. They do that some from the stage in the way they handle themselves, but there's a kind of renewal of guys who I think are kind of theologically driven. Certainly they're gifted musically, and I think we can want to talk more about that. But they're also just they've sharpened their mind theologically, and so I'm actually very encouraged by that. And I think we're seeing this play out in some of the hymns that are being written right now. I mean, guys that come to mind are like Matt Boswell, Matt Papa. Guys like Aaron Ivey and others. Yeah. Even a book that they came out with years ago. Now it's probably more than a half a decade ago. Where each of those guys wrote chapters in a book about musical worship. And so I've been really encouraged by that. Yeah. Having said that, I think on the whole, I would still find music ministry to be rather shallow. Most of the time and this is true, I think, even of preaching. This is true of almost anything in American Christianity, is we prize way too much the giftedness of somebody rather than the depth of who they are. Which I think is backwards in what we look and see in the scriptures. Obviously, the focus for the elder is primarily on character. Now, that can go too far. The pastorals are very clear. They need to be able to handle the Bible, rightly divide the word. They need to know sound doctrine. But I am encouraged by this move of guys who are leading, but also kind of they're growing in their theological depth. Because the reason I say that is because in most of our churches, the music guy, you are going to be seen second most to the pastor on a Sunday morning. And so I want that guy to be able to pastor the flock and to be able to shepherd from the stage. They're certainly going to do that in the songs they pick, and we can talk more about those kind of things. But even in their presence and the way they're handling that kind of musical worship moment is a aspect of pastoring. And so I want to see guys who are not just gifted musically, but they're gifted in understanding the Bible and understanding how to shepherd people in that moment, which is a key aspect of who we are as Christians. We come together to encourage one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. It's a massive part of what we do on a Sunday morning as we come together as the people of God. And so I think I want to see that grow all the more.
And I think that's thinking about the character of the person who's leading the music, probably even more. I think that position is unique, even more than the preaching position. It attracts people who are gifted in that area. It's needed. Right. You need someone who can think theologically, but then also deal with music and volunteers. And sometimes the traits and the talents of being able to do that trump maybe even more so than someone who's going to stand up and preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it is a big, it's something we have to be cautious of, and something else I say often on the channel is like, this role also attracts people who like being on the stage.
Right. Yeah.
And so they can even act a certain way to get that position. And so that's I haven't even asked you the warning question. What warning would you give worship leaders? I think we're getting there.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But on the whole, again, even the Gettys and the kind of stuff they're doing with Sing and other things, on the whole, I think there's some richness to, particularly in the circles we run in. I'm encouraged on the whole. I still think, again, even what you're saying, it tends to attract people who are comfortable on stage, but also means they're probably very gifted, charismatic, not channeled in the right way and with the right affections, then those kind of things can tend to go in a direction that's very ungodly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the biggest need, we've kind of hit on it, but practically, okay, I'm a worship leader coming up. What do I need to do specifically to be ready for this role?
Yeah. It's just funny, I work in church planting, and I think in some circles, oftentimes, guys are planting churches and have no idea how to even define what the church is. I think that's a real problem. If you're going to start a business tomorrow, you need to know what that business is. If you're going to start a church, try to help start a church, you need to know what the church is. I think in much the same way, I mean, we're using the term worship, right?
Right.
You need to be able to understand what is worship. You need to be able to define that. You need to be understanding what you're doing. Now, we would obviously say worship is much bigger than just music. Right. That's a common mistake. But we need guys who understand, okay, here is what we are doing. When we come together, this is what worship is, and one of the primary ways we do that is through singing, and they need to understand what that is. So there needs to be a depth theologically to understanding what is it that I'm leading people to do in this moment. Because I think if there's a foundation like that, I think some of these other things that I think are problems will kind of go to the wayside because the person will take that moment much more seriously.
Yeah.
This is not a performance. Okay, I think that is one of the massive problems that we have in music ministry, is that it's my time to shine. It's my time to show off my gifts. That is not what this is. We're approaching the creator of the universe, who has, in his love and kindness, displayed his grace to us and making a way for us to be made right with him through the atoning sacrifice of his son. That's what we're doing. We're not doing a performance. Like, Jesus is not going to be impressed by our music. Like he's known every musical style that's ever existed, and you're not going to be unique. You know, there's guys we know from 500 years ago. So he's not going to be impressed by it. So it's not a production. It's not a performance. It's an act of worship that people who have been shown amazing grace are giving back. They're responding to the grace they've received in a musical offering to God of both our affections, and there's not just a vertical aspect to what we're doing, which, again, thinking Ephesians 4 and other places in the New Testament, there's a horizontal effect. We're encouraging one another. So there's this kind of, yes, certainly our affections are being drawn to God, but our worship is also to be edifying to the people around us. And so if we think about the gravity and seriousness of that, I don't mean like that the music time in the worship service needs to be somber, but there needs to be a gravity to it. Like, this should be joyful. We should be happy. I mean, and when you have a really good Sunday morning, that's all those things are apparent. But there's also this is a really weighty thing we're doing, and so let's treat that moment as it is. And so again, I think that then would help us eliminate what I think are some of the common problems, which is just a shallowness, a performance-driven. Really, the people on stage are kind of the main focus, and the people in the congregation are here to watch them perform. I don't think that's consonant with what we see in the New Testament.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that helps me every Sunday is to think, like we've already addressed, pastorally, and what are we doing in that moment that's different than every other gathering. We're not at a concert, and that is that we are there congregationally. This is not an individual moment, and so that means me too. I'm not the individual, or my singers. I have to remind the people who come on my team as volunteers that it's obviously not about them. We can say that all the time, but so much we tend to make it about ourselves, or even about like the response from the congregation. And it's been so helpful to kind of just release all that and think this is just a time for us as a family, this body, to get together and worship our Creator. And when I keep that on the forefront, I'm thinking this is about us and then ultimately about Him, it helps so much.
And we may talk about this with some of the other questions, but even just some stuff we've done recently, even at Open Door, that's been really encouraging is when we kind of drop out the music and we sing a cappella, because we get a chance to then hear everybody's voice. And that's, I think, just small ways. I obviously think that we should have instruments. The Bible has instruments all throughout, and I think we want people using their gifts to honor the Lord. But there's something really special about when we do kind of drop out the music to hear the whole congregation singing. Because this is a family coming together to worship the God who has shown His amazing love to them. And so I love when I get a chance to hear other people's voices. So one of my maybe pet peeves is when the music's way too loud and you can't hear other people sing. I feel like maybe I'm saying that because I'm getting older, so maybe I'm becoming that guy that's the old guy who's like, man, the music's too loud. I don't mean it in that sense, because I actually like loud music. I like intent, I like some of that, but I think it defeats the purpose of what we're doing. Trying to do, and what the New Testament is encouraging us to do.
That's so true. I was thinking if there's pastors watching this, who knows who's watching these videos, but what I've seen around here is there's a big focus on the preaching, which there rightly should be in the church, getting pastors ready. I've also seen, and I have several pastor friends preaching right now who have to strap on a guitar and lead themselves and then put down the guitar and then go preach. And I've done that before, and it's the worst. But is there a way to think about it where, because in my experience, I've seen pastors, they go to plant, they raise money, and then Sundays come and they're like, oh, what am I going to do for music?
Yeah. Well, with this kind of renewal of, the guy who's in the position of leading musical worship, being more of actually a pastor and leading in that way, I do think that I want to see a renewal of guys who are being theologically trained in that position. So, because I want them to be pastors, not just music leaders. So I want them, because they're going to be, again, second most to the pastor. They're going to be the one shepherding from the stage. So we think about sometimes corporate worship as mass discipleship. So there's macro and micro discipleship in the local church. The Sunday morning is macro discipleship. The pastor gets a chance by the sermon to do kind of mass discipleship for the whole congregation, shaping of the whole congregation. Well, the music guy is going to be doing macro discipleship. And so, we even talk about oftentimes music is portable theology. More so people are going to remember a lyric they sang on Sunday than even something the pastor said, so it's portable theology. So I want the guy who's helping shape that part of the service to be theologically sound. And so I would love to see more equipping, and not just not on the musical giftedness, which I think matters, and it's not unimportant, but on theological savvy. I want there to be a renewal of just even internships or whatever you would call them, but where guys are being equipped by men like you and some of the ones I've mentioned, where they're kind of passing on, here's philosophically how I view this, here's kind of what I'm trying to do every Sunday theologically, here's kind of ways I think about trying to shepherd the congregation as I'm leading, so in between songs, here's what I'm thinking. So certainly be trained musically, but number two, be trained theologically, and then number three, be trained kind of practically. How do you then bring all that to bear on the Sunday morning event, which I hesitate to call it event, but you know what I mean, in the Sunday morning gathering of the saints? How do you bring all this then to bear? And so to think through those things pretty deeply so that you're obviously a benefit to the people you're serving.
Yeah, and I think the biggest need is that it's a need. We need guys who can think theologically, who are being trained, and it's difficult. I'm a pillar. I was speaking yesterday with a group of pillar worship leaders that we're meeting over Zoom right now to talk through, and we're all in agreement. Agreeance?
Agree. Yeah, I think,
Which one is it?
They both work. The key is you say it like you know what you're talking about, and just keep
going with it. We all agree that is the biggest need.
Yeah.
That's we need to train, and so even if it's just seeing youth and pouring into them, if nothing else, and then trying to figure out ways to maybe make an internship or somehow to raise leaders. Yeah.
Even in our seminaries, for the most part, some of these music programs have kind of gone to the wayside. A lot of people were finding music ministers through other means. And however this shakes out, I don't really have strong feelings. But what I do have strong feelings about is the seminaries and even Bible colleges are not trade schools. Just you go through that doesn't make you a pastor. The local church is what identifies you as a pastor. And so I definitely want seminaries to help us with theological training, but I want to see this return to the local church where we'd have guys, again, like you, but even pastors who are shaping those who will be leading musically in the church as they plant and revitalize.
Yeah. All right, that sounds good. Knowing your personality, and you've traveled a lot, you've seen a lot. What are some pet peeves?
Okay.
This is a chance to vent because it's fun. I love hearing
I love that you set it up with knowing your personality. I've got several.
Yeah.
The first one that's been, and I've had this as a pet peeve since I was younger, and obviously it hasn't gotten any better. So this is like a hopeless. By bringing this up, I don't expect to see any change. I get very irritated when music ministers talk too much. So I think, like, you're not preaching the sermon. So I'm not saying this to you personally.
Right,
You're actually very good at this. But don't speak, like, don't do a mini sermon in between every song.
Right.
Like we're about to hear,
especially
at our church, we're about to hear a 50-minute sermon. So we don't need to have many sermons along the way. I do think there needs to be instruction.
Leadership.
Yeah, there needs to be instruction. There needs to be kind of trying to build, which I love how you do this, trying to build a cohesiveness among the songs, even in regards to the sermon that's going to be the text that's going to be preached. I love when it seems very clear. There's been well thought out. How does this apply to the key things that we're going to hear in the sermon? But I mean, years ago, I went to he used to be one of the lead singers of like Caedmon's Call or something, and he's a popular guy. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. And it was a concert, but literally between every song, he spoke for 15, 20 minutes.
And you're just like...
And I was just like, well, I came here to hear a concert. I didn't come to hear a sermon.
Yeah.
And so when I see that happen in services, it drives me nuts, especially when the person who's doing it is not theologically trained.
And they're just rambling.
They're rambling, and it's a lot of, and that'll get into my second pet peeve in a minute, but there's a lot of touchy-feely, there's a lot of I don't know, I'm just like, I didn't come here for a counseling session with the music minister. I came here to worship Jesus. Let's move on.
Yeah.
And so I don't want too much talking from the music minister. I do want well thought out. I want scriptures connected, which again you do well.
Creeds,
things that are very kind of like very short but very impactful.
Yeah.
Again, we're taking some of this home with us, and so don't talk too much. We have a guy who's going to get up and preach in just a minute. And then even shallow songs would be a pet peeve. Yeah. So
songs that could just be love songs.
Right. Just love. Yeah, they could be sung about anybody else.
Right.
And sung about your girlfriend. And like I'm not okay with that. So that would be the third pet peeve. To say, hey, we have such a bank and resource of good songs, and I don't even mean hymns. Like I know you're oftentimes in church is going to be sing more hymns. I was reading a thing today. Tom Rainer put up these 20 things that pastors heard in their interview to become the pastor of the church, and one of them was just like, we just make sure you pick at least 2 hymns a week. And it's great. I love some hymns, but there's such a bank of theologically rich songs. Like pick ones that are going to drive both the mind and the emotion, because I think we have so many good ones. So don't pick bad ones. I don't want to get into all the, there's a lot of debates right now about can we sing songs from this group or that group. I think those are worthy discussions. I don't get as bent, out of shape on those things as I do about just picking songs that don't have, or songs that are wrong, like they say something wrong. Because again, we have so many to choose from. So, there's a song years ago, love the song. There's a lot of good in it, but he says that at the cross, Jesus thought of me above all. And it's like, we can't find that anywhere in the Bible, and it's actually untrue. Like, Jesus is thinking about the will of the Father above all. He certainly has us in mind. I don't want to minimize that, or else he wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
And I think we go too far the other way. But I don't sing songs that are theologically inaccurate.
Right.
And so, again, there's so many to choose from that you don't have to have a problem there.
That's the key point that Pastor Dwayne has helped me with. Yeah. I would come to him like, okay, there's this song. I love the song, but there's this uncomfortable thing about it. And one of the things he just kind of, he didn't want me to come to him with every single song.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
So the principle, he's like, man, if there's any kind of drama around a song or around who even wrote it, potentially, like there are so many other good songs out there to choose from, just stay away from those. Yeah. We can sing something else. And I was like, that's really good. I like, and it helps me, it frees me up.
That's good. I kind of want to come full circle, just as I think about the pet peeves. Again, there's I mean, this is a privilege. We have the chance to approach the God who has saved us. He's moved us from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of his beloved Son. So just think about the importance of that moment. You get a chance to shepherd and lead people in that. And I love Hebrews. Hebrews 12 has some really wonderful things to say about worship, about what we're doing when we come together and worship. And he says this. I'll just read a little bit of it because I love it. He says, "You have not come to what could be touched, to a blazing fire, to darkness, gloom, storm, to the blast of a trumpet, the sound of words." He says, Instead, you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to myriads of angels, a festive gathering, to the assembly of the firstborn, whose names have been written in heaven, to a judge who is God of all, to the spirits of the righteous made perfect." And I love this, "and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to sprinkle blood, which speaks speaks better than the blood of Abel." And so, as we're approaching worship, as we're thinking about worship, this is what we're doing. We're approaching this kind of we're getting to join in this heavenly gathering. So there's something important to what we're doing. So just treat it as such. It should be fun. It should be joyous, because here's the thing. We've been saved from darkness into light. So there's a lot of things to be happy about. But there's also a seriousness in approaching the God who is to be feared. And so I would just say, I think if we have those things in mind, I think it will eliminate some of the things that I see as pet peeves.
Yeah. All right, man. That's all. It's all great stuff. I think it's very helpful. So if people want to, if you've liked what you heard, if they liked what they've heard today, where can they follow you? Twitter? So
Twitter is just Nate Akin, so Nateakin. You can figure out how to spell my own name. Right. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram's the same thing, Nate Akin.
Okay.
And then I preach some at Open Door, preach kind of all over, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you host
Baptist 21 podcast. You can find that iTunes and other places, and then the Christ-centered and clear, same thing on most all platforms that you can find podcasts. So, yeah.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, do all the stuff. See you in the next one. Bye.
Like, subscribe.
Oh man, it's still rolling.